Okay, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee, and today is Shabbat, Saturday, 22nd of November, and we're having a beautiful day here in Israel. Uh, I'm up in the Galilee. We're at 71 degrees, and we'll hit 86 today. Slightly warm, probably turn the fan on in the middle of the day, but no air conditioner probably. So it's 8:40 in the morning, and actually 8:39. But um, we're going to cover today why Israel's going to very shortly hate Trump in a matter of days, and it's rather public. I'll explain everything to you, and what Trump did to Zelensky and Ukraine. He basically stabbed Israel in the back, and he's stabbing Ukraine in the back. Okay, and I'm going to really give you the details on Ukraine and Israel. Okay, and you'll see what he did. He's really, Ukraine is one thing, Israel's another. God's going to deal with Israel much differently. So the end of the daughter of Babylon is getting closer and closer. Yesterday I went through Jeremiah 50 and 51, and I believe I did an okay job anyway of showing you how close we are, how many things are already in play. Okay, um, it's begun. It's on its way. It has been for a while, I believe. Okay, so I'm going to cover other things in the news too that is of interest, and I'm going to go into the um, all right, just reading here. Texas banned Sharia law. Huh, that's a good thing, isn't it? Okay, let us get into the live stream. And oh, I hit the wrong button. I do that a lot. Let's get out of here. Uh, go. Wait a minute. What happened? I gotta get out. Okay, there we go. And we got sound and picture. Okay, there we go. And we got sound and picture. All right, let me put a quick post up. Oh, I can't without. This is so annoying what they've done. Good to see you. Dude, she broke. Oh, it's so annoying with YouTube. They're so in favor of shorts. It's unbelievable. And shorts are junk. What do you get out of a short? I mean, it must be the mindset of the people. Their attention span is so limited from playing video games and taking drugs, medical doctor drugs and street drugs and eating supersized me with uh, a liter or 2 liter bottle of strawberry soda or something like that. I don't know what's wrong with the people, but something's wrong with them. I can't stand the shorts, and they're all stupid, and they bad information, fake news and stupid stuff and misleading, and they love it over there. I don't. Okay, this is the end, so not the end of the broadcast, the end of the age. So you're going to see things like this, and that's just it. Not much you can do about it. It is what it is. Do I think that Trump really eats McDonald's all the time or frequently? I doubt it. I think he just does that occasionally. He makes a show to make the people think he's one of them or something like that. But I wouldn't believe it. Okay, well, let me shut the sound off. We're good with that. And I'm going to do some praise, being a Bible-believing site. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so some of you are probably starting to wonder what the Donald Trump did that's going to turn the Israelites against him in a massive way. And Netanyahu's going to take the ride too, because he's not in a position to turn against Trump. So what the heck did he do? Well, as you know, Trump said 1,000,001 times that, and Witkoff and Rubio and everyone else said that Hamas has to disarm or they're going to be disarmed and that'll be ugly, right? You heard that 1,000,000 times. Does Trump intend to do this? No. Not according to the latest plan. I'll get into that. And Trump also said that Hamas will have nothing to do with ruling Gaza, right? Did Trump go back on that also? He did. Gutless wonder Trump went and submitting a new plan. He's kicking this around with the UN, I believe. And let me explain what's going on. Saudi Arabia told him, you're not going to get any Arab states to go into Gaza and, manage it for a few years and disarm Hamas. It's not going to happen. How did Saudi know that? Because he talks to them. That's how he knows it. So he told Trump he was actually doing Trump a favor. Trump realizes it. And here's Trump's problems. He's not going to put the military in there to do it because he's afraid. What is he afraid of? Sleeper agents, for starters. Muslim uprising. around the world, attacking embassies, consulates, bases of America, and so forth. He's not doing that. So he was trying to find somebody else to do it, and he doesn't have somebody else except Israel. The problem he has, if Israel does it, the Houthis are going to close the Red Sea again, start shooting missiles at Israel and drones every day. And eventually that'll expand to hitting Saudi Arabia and other bases in other countries. And Trump doesn't want that. One big reason why Trump is afraid for war is the military is no good. And when you think of the military, you're thinking SEAL team, Delta Forces, Green Berets, Recon Marines, Marauder Marines, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not your military. That's a tiny piece of your military. Tiny, teeny, tiny piece. Okay? You got to look at your average sailors, your average soldiers, your average Air Force guys and gals. And you got a lot of people that came from the hood and the ghetto just trying to get a roof over their heads and a chance to make something of themselves, and they managed to get out of high school. And I do not believe these people are going to go risk their lives for Trump and the American military. I think they'll defect or just take their uniform off and walk away. I don't think they'll do anything for America that's dangerous. I don't think they're that capable and confident, and I don't think they're that motivated. To them, it's a job. They just want to get a job. They want to get a roof. You know, they're in the hood. Mom's got no husband. Mom might be working 2 jobs or a job and a half, telling the kid to get ahead. So the kid goes, gets her or herself or himself out of high school, and goes and joins the Air Force, the Navy, the Army, the Marines, whatever they want to join, right? And can they make something out of themselves? Of course they can. Okay, you know, in the world, not in the spiritual realm, but in the world they can. Well, what do you mean? Well, they can learn a skill. Well, they're not going to test that high on a lot of things, so they're not going to, become pilots or go to computer school or, stuff like that. What they could wind up doing is learning how to be an aircraft mechanic, a truck mechanic, a car mechanic. They could learn how to make roads, how to do carpentry, be painters, electricians maybe, if they could pass the IQ stuff, right? They got all this stuff. Communications people. Millions of things they could do. Cooking. A lot of them that aren't so high IQ learn how to cook, and then when they get out, they could work for there's lots of places that are cooking for mass numbers of people, and if you come to them and you got 20 years in the military, by then you know how to plan meals for hundreds or thousands of people a day. Now, somebody that went to cooking school did that academically. You did it in the real world for years and years and years. That's worth a lot to them. So they're not going in the military because they're patriots and they want to, wave the flag and push America. They're going in there for their own selfish needs. Okay? So let's say the kid goes in at 18. The kid's retiring out at 38. The kid's got a pension. Probably not going to be an officer, probably be some sort of master sergeant or something, right? Might get out with $1,200-$1,400 a month or something like that. But picked up a skill set and could go get a good job somewhere. Or if they're 38, they might let them stay in another 10 years. Now their pension is going to be a lot higher. And they're still employable. They're 48. They can get hired. They could do 20 years someplace else and they're 68 and they got a double pension. There's no prophetic time for any of this, but I'm just telling you, they don't see that. This is how they see it. There are patriots in the military, but they're usually wind up in specialized combat units, There's kids that go in and want to fly helicopters and aircraft. Very few are going to make it because they're highly selective. There's a lot of kids that go join the Navy and they want to be a Navy SEAL. It's like when they had that show Chips on TV. Eric Estrada would say he was living in LA for a million years after that he'd bang into highway patrolmen, they'd see him in the car. He also drove a motorcycle, he had a Harley. And they'd thank him and they'd say, oh, because of you I joined the highway patrol, and But a lot of people joined the highway patrol and quit. They didn't like it. It was a lousy job. I know quite a bit about what their job is like. It's no good. What Poncherelli and the other guy in Chips never told you on the TV show is you're riding around on the smog-filled California freeways, breathing smog in, getting soot and oil and gas on your face. Okay, driving around. It's a dangerous job. Okay. Not only do you have to watch out for criminals that you're trying to interdict, you got to watch out for regular jerk drivers. It's not really considered law enforcement work. It is and it isn't. I mean, it depends who you talk to. Okay? You're basically a traffic police officer. That's what they do. That's their primary function. And you're out in the cold, you're out in the heat, you're out in the dirt. I don't think they use the bikes in real rain. They'd probably call them in and give them a car to drive for the day. But it's not what they think it is. In all those TV series that Chips that went for several years, they had one episode when the Chips guy, one of them, pulled his gun out. They never shot anybody in Chips. There's very unrealistic portrayal of law enforcement in Southern California. And the other problem is you join in Southern California, you're in a state agency. They send you to Bakersfield where they're wearing cowboy hats. What are you going to do there? Well, they send you up north in between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe. What are you going to do up there? Go to Angels Camp or someplace, you know. See, these kids joined. They didn't understand where they're going to get sent. They didn't know where they're going to get sent. Okay? Wind up anywhere in California. You can't tell them, I'm joining CHP, but I have to work in San Francisco. They don't do that. You know? Then when there's riots, guess what? California Highway Patrol gets riot training when they show up for the riots, which is no fun. Okay? It's not fun. So imagine you're out on a highway somewhere. It's a Tuesday night. It's a misting rain. It's 2:30 in the morning. And you see a car going that's behaving weird. Shifting lanes wildly. Just not driving correctly. Okay? So you go to pull them over. And as you start your traffic stop, you get behind them. And then all of a sudden they start driving nice. So that's double suspicion. You phone the plates in. You don't get anything on the plates. You don't get stolen. You don't get anything. The plates might match the car. And then you got to pull them over. So you put your light on and they pull over. At this point, you turn your little spotlights on. They're on the back of your mirrors and you shine it in the car. And you see something like 5 or 6 heads in the car. Now, if you're in a one-man patrol car, I don't know if Chips uses those now or not. In my day, we used them. And you got to walk up to that car. And there's 4 or 5 people in the car. And they look like gangbangers, okay? So you're going to tell your dispatch where you are, where you stopped. And if you start asking for backup, your sergeant's going to get mad because why did you ask for the backup? Just because it was a stop? No. Now, what would frequently happen is at night and rain, the other CHP guys near you, if they're not engaged with something, would probably meander over your way. Okay? And they might actually stop and ask you what's going on, or how you doing, or you want any help, or they might more likely just drive by slowly looking at you to see if everything looks like it was good. That's probably what they would do. Because if they pull over and stop, they got to tell dispatch they stopped where they are. Then the sergeant's going to get involved and want to know why, what's going on. Why'd you stop? What's up? You know. You walk over to the car, and you don't know if they have a 12 gauge right here. You come to the car, and you knock on the window, he rolls it down, and then, boom, he blows your head off. Bulletproof vest and all, he blows your head off at 2 or 3 feet away. Or one of the guys in the back seat does it. Or maybe both of them. Or maybe it's just a handgun. Or maybe they got a rifle and they shoot you with the rifle. Anything. You know. So these guys become alcoholics. They become nuts. They become crackpots. when they got to go to sleep, a lot of them are just going to sit there and, you know, drink that much in the bottle and knock themselves out for a few hours. And they'll smoke 2 packs a day. They'll drink heavy. So between the smoking and the drinking, staying physically fit is going to go out the window. You see people at the range. I used to see this. Cops come to the range. They're like this. I mean, literally like this, and they're trying to qualify, and they're shaking like that. They're drunkards. They rarely get into drugs. They're not that stupid. They're drunkards. They're not looking for the perfect high. They're looking to calm down their nerves because they're full of fear. You know? So it's, this goes on. They do this 10, 12 times a shift. They're pulling cars and they don't know what's going on. A lot of times it seems passive. If they're on day shift, it's much easier. The crime rate's not as high on the day shift, and you can see what's going on the day shift. So you're going to get a milder thing. But the guys that have years on the job with the families, they're putting in for day shift. They don't like coming home off a shift at the same time as their kids are leaving the house to go to school, or roughly, They like, going an 8 to 4 or something like that, Or they might have an 8 to 6, a heavier shift, But they come home and they're able to circulate with the family while the family's not sleeping. Okay. The other thing they could get, that's, graveyard would be, they got all different kinds of graveyards in every different city. I mean, you could come in at, some of them, you come in, it's at the peak hours, they want more people. So you might come in at 7 o'clock and go off at 3. Okay. 7 o'clock, your commuters and your workers are home and your nightlife is starting. And by 3, it's finished. The people have left the bars. The drunk drivers are off the road already. It's over. The bad guys, the gangs are home. Stoned on drugs are in their clubhouse nodding off. There's not that much happening. Okay, so you get off that time. So how does that work for them? Well, it works, but not like day shift, because they come home. By the time they get home and change and go to bed, it's about 4 o'clock in the morning. So usually those people are going to have a separate room to sleep in, away from the family. So they'll close all the blinds and the windows. The kids will have to be quiet when they wake up in the morning and go to school. The wife can't run the vacuum and stuff like that. Maybe if they got a 2-family, a 2-floor house and he's upstairs in a bedroom, she could work downstairs. He wouldn't hear it. It depends how they live, And then he, he's going to get up at, 10, 11, 12 in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning, 11, 12. So he's got a good part of the day where he can function, and he's also going to see the kids when they come home from school, right? So he can go shopping with the wife. He can go out and do things. He can go to the gym. He could go to the beach even. There's stuff he could do, But he's got to make sure he's alert when he gets to shift, And then they got they got a night shift work where they'll come in at midnight. or 11 o'clock or midnight, get off around 8 o'clock in the morning, midnight to 8, and they come home in rush hour. And they're obtuse to the world. Now, if they're single, yeah, they can adapt, make sure they have a house where they can maintain quiet, like a private house. And they could get a room to sleep in where they can black out, curtain the place, and go to sleep. So, I mean, it's a hard thing. So a lot of these guys fall apart. Okay, so back to Trump. So Trump can't get anybody to disarm Gaza. If Israel does it, the Arabs are going to rise up. Okay, genocide. America's allied with genocidal Israel. America's doing the genocide with Israel. America's enabling Israel to do the genocide by giving them the weapons. And then Trump's going to get dragged into this, and he doesn't want it. The Muslims ain't going for it, because they know if they don't do it, it ain't going to happen. So what Trump is saying now is we're going to divide Gaza into two places. One is the area controlled by Israel and the IDF. That brings us to the yellow line, which separates the area, and Israel's been expanding how much their portion is. And I haven't heard Trump complain about that. And the other portion of Gaza, Hamas is going to continue to run and control. The other side of the yellow line. So from the yellow line towards Israel, going east, Israel's going to control that. So there's not going to be any genocide type behavior because we already control it. And Hamas is going to be left alone. They're going to be the government of half of Gaza, or 35% of it, whatever it's going to boil down to. I don't know what the percentage is yet. And let's find out. Let's see. I think we can get a percentage figure. Let me take a look. So Trump is going back on his word, and he's backstabbing Israel, and I'm going to explain to you why it's a backstabbing of Israel and how bad it is for Israel. Life-threatening. Okay, Reuters reports that as of the first phase, effective October 10th, which is about a month ago, a little more, Israel controlled about 53% of the Gaza Strip. Israel might have up to 60% of the Strip now. It's reasonable to assume Israel has more than half of the Gaza Strip, okay, but they don't have 80%. So Gaza's Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad are going to live again. They're going to keep all their weapons, and they're going to get about a little less than half of Gaza for their domain, where they will be the government, they will have the police, they will have their weapons, and they will be maintaining Gaza. So Trump is dividing Gaza. Now that leaves Gaza free to build. They still have tunnels in that part of Gaza, so they have places to hide. And I don't know what they have for weapons, but they'll start building weapons again, and they'll smuggle in goods, or they'll try as hard as they possibly can to smuggle in goods. They're not going to be, as far as I can tell, near Egypt. So Egypt's not really going to be able to help them unless they can figure out a tunnel network to take them from their portion of Gaza all the way into Egypt, which is something they're capable of doing, but not so easily. And Israel would be looking for it. So they will rebuild. Who wants them to rebuild? Iran, Hezbollah, Houthis, Hamas itself, PIJ, and the other Shiite-backed Muslim, Iranian-backed Muslim terrorist groups in Syria and Iraq, and the IRGC. So they will try to get them to build up weapons. Does this mean they're going to be able to have an airstrip and Iran's going to fly in with weapons? No. But what does anybody do if they start building an airstrip? What happens next? Well, I don't think they have the materials to do it. Trump is also saying that there's not going to be any rebuilding of Gaza in the area that Hamas controls. Well, you can't. Well, what does that mean? Hamas won't let people rebuild it unless they're under their thumb, and they'll make the people kick back to them probably 25% of whatever they're getting paid. So they're going to make more millions of dollars off it. If they don't kick back, they won't let them work there. Also, they'll steal building equipment and supplies and machinery to build tunnels. So it's like you could consider it impossible to rebuild. They'll rebuild the hospital, and the hospital will have a basement that's 3 or 4 levels deep, and it's going to be where they live. And they'll build tunnels. They'll break holes in the basement of the hospital and make tunnels, and the tunnels will draw water, plumbing, sewage, electricity from the hospital. So Israel will be left with a functional Hamas. All the Hamas that's still walking above ground is going to go in there. Some of the people that like Hamas and work with Hamas will go there too, but many probably won't want to be there. Is this anything Trump said he was going to do? No. Is Trump breaking his word left, right, and center? Absolutely. Is this going to get the Israelis completely nuts? Yes, because he also said that there's going to be a clear path for a Palestinian state. Well, here it is. You got half of Gaza. Why can't you make that a Palestinian state? Yeah, you can. See what's going on? He's playing the game of let's keep Hamas around so they can kill the Jews again another day. He's not saying he's doing that, but his actions are telling me. What could Trump do about this to stop it? What he said he was going to do. Just tell Hamas you're going to get blown up and die if you don't disarm and leave or stop running the government. That's all you got to do. Israel, they know Israel will do it. How many days would it really take for Israel to do it? 2 weeks? That's it. All they have to do is dedicate about 25 jets. You don't need F-35s. You know, F-16, stuff like that. Run about 35, 25 jets, 30 jets, 3 times a day. You know, a morning run, a midday run, an afternoon run, and hit targets, and then artillery hit targets, and keep destroying the tunnels and filling them with concrete. And what do you got left? Nothing. They got no, maybe a month at the maximum, and they're finished. You blow their buildings up, they got no buildings to live in. You blow their tunnels up, they got no tunnels to live in. Well, that's it, then you're done. What are they going to do? They're going to run around with AK-47s and pistols? Yeah, you're going to always have that. That's not major. You can get rid of that. You just put checkpoints up with tanks. You know, you take an intersection, you put 3 tanks there, right? You put 30 or 40 soldiers there, and you start searching people, and they come through. You'll get a lot of weapons. You know, so they want us to not only have no victory, the Kissinger doctrine, they want Hamas to have no victory because they lost half the Gaza. And they want Israel to have no victory. They want nobody to win except Trump wins. How can Trump build his, you know, Trump casino resorts of Gaza with this scenario? I don't think he can. Probably he has plans. I don't know. Maybe he wants to. I don't know what he's up to. Maybe he gave up on that idea. He figured the Arabs will just hold it against him, or I don't know. I think the Saudis would like, and the UAE would like it and invest money in it, and Kuwait and other places. So I don't think he gave up on it yet, but I don't know. I think he doesn't know how to make it come to pass. He's stumped. Now let me check the live stream for questions, and then we're going to talk about Ukraine, what he did to Ukraine. He really stabbed Zelensky in the back. Checking to see if I got questions, prayer requests, and the like. I'm not seeing anything. Just a lot of people trying to say nasty, ugly things in there. All right. Do any of you see a warning under the video somewhere that says this site is known to do, you know, fake news or, you know, exaggeration or anything slurring me like that? Are you seeing anything like that there? Let me know if you are, please. All right, Ukraine. So Trump created a 28-point peace plan for Ukraine and submitted it to the UN. And he's basically telling Zelensky that he's got to go for it. And if Zelensky doesn't sign off on this, what's going to happen is as follows. The United States will not give Ukraine any more weapons. The United States will not give Ukraine any more intelligence information. In addition, the United States will stop selling weapons to Europe, which are passed on to Ukraine. Now, we got some Weisenheimer doing witchcraft spells and enchantments here, so I'm going to lay out a very severe binding on this individual, and I would like you guys to agree. Okay, this is going to be very bad for this individual, all right? B'Shem Yeshua individuals. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, we're being provoked and teased by some people serving the unclean spirits. And they're getting great pleasure over these 2-bit parlor tricks they're able to do and enjoying themselves. And I'm going to submit a binding to you that's going to make their life rather lousy for them in return for this. Okay? So what I propose for a binding is that all these people that are doing any witchcraft, sorcery, spells, enchantments, witchcraft aimed directed at me or anyone else, whether doing it on the broadcast or when it's a video, I would ask you, number one, my Heavenly Father, that all these things that have been done now and in the last year be canceled and made null and void and no effect forever. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that if you're a believer. Next, I would pray that all these people doing the witchcraft, sorcery, spells, enchantments, witchcraft, that every witchcraft spell, enchantment, witchcraft, sorcery thing they ever did in their entire life, and anything anyone who lives in the same house as them has done in their entire life, be made null and void for all time, of no value, no effect forever, never to return again, no matter what, for all time. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with me, believers, on this. Even if it's a video, agree with me, it'll work. Okay, further, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I bind any and all unclean spirits from being inside these people again for the next 5 years continuously. I also bind them from going into the house or the cars or the workplace of all these people for the next 5 years continuously. I also bind them from appearing to these people or giving them any advice, guidance, leading, direction, or communicating with them or receiving communication from these people for the next 5 years continuously, beginning now, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that. In addition, I bind all the unclean spirits from remaining inside any person that lives within 1 mile of these people. All you unclean spirits must depart from all these people that you're in within 1 mile of these people, never to return unto them again. And none of you unclean spirits shall appear to these people in the 1 mile distance from them, nor guide them, lead them, direct them, help them, assist them, communicate with them, or go in them for another 1 year continuously, beginning now. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with me there. Additionally, my Heavenly Father, I would ask as a binding that, well, I don't know if it's a binding or a loosing, but I'll just ask for it, that all these people will have no unclean spirit for a period of time, a year, or 5 years would be better, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, for 5 years, and that they're not able to convey to other people that have unclean spirits, that work with the devil, that work with the unclean spirits that are Satan bots, they cannot communicate to these people in any meaningful way that they are serving the unclean spirits as well. So the people serving the unclean spirits will not know that they're one of their own kind and would be free to put their own curses and spells and witchcraft and enchantments on these people. And these people would have no way of protecting themselves from their own kind, other Satan bots. And I submit this to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. I further, my Heavenly Father, Jehovah, would ask that any person or persons that these unclean spirits go to for advice, guidance, reading, or counseling, any people they go to for help, that these people, if they communicate with them for help, whatever binding, loosing, and commandments are on these people will also transfer to those that they ask for help at the time they ask for help, irrespective of whether or not the people give them help. And I ask for this also, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with me if you are believers. I further, my Heavenly Father, would stipulate that for the next 5 years continuously, these people, whenever they get within 25 feet of somebody with an unclean spirit in them, that unclean spirit must immediately depart from these people without ever giving them any warning or ever explaining to them what happened after it's over. And these commands apply when they're driving, when they're walking, anything they're doing. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that also. I further bind any unclean spirit from being inside any person that has any communication with these people over the internet, on telephones, or in person. The unclean spirits will immediately depart from these people, never return unto them again, and no unclean spirit will go into these people, nor appear to them, nor guide them, lead them, direct them, help them, or assist them for 5 years continuously. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay. And I bind any unclean spirit from doing anything with these people, not to go in their houses or their vehicles, or help them economically, or with work, or with other people, or with any problems, or protect them in any way, shape, or form, or have people protect them or help them. They're bound from doing any of this for 5 years continuously. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you can agree with this. Okay. So this is what I would term laying it on heavy. Okay? Their own kind will turn against them. So they want to play their little games. And they want to basically play house with us. Well, I'll burn their house down with them in it. If that's what they like doing. That's a figure of speech. Not literal. But, you just go after them hard. Because that's the only language they understand. Okay? We're not in the phase where we'll be doing to them like what happened to Ananias and Sapphira. That will come. But we're not there yet. And we're not burning them up yet. But we'll be there shortly. But this will, I've done this before. This devastates them. They realize that they're lost, they're abandoned, their gods are not gods, there's nothing they can do to help them, and they're just all screwed up. And if they want to repent and come to the Lord and get saved and betray their unclean spirits of the past and toss them too in the future, they can do that. Remember Apostle Paul. He was killing the believers, and look what he turned into. He turned into a great guy. So you can turn these people around too. These people that wanted to play games are going to have a real reality lesson. Okay. And you guys can do what I did yourselves. You could do it yourselves. You don't need, just keep playing it back until you figured it out. And when you lay it on heavy, it really takes its toll on them. Okay? So what did he do with Ukraine? Well, now if you want to do what I did to world leaders and movie stars and rich billionaires, and go ahead, have a good time. Don't worry about me. I don't care. Enjoy yourself. You don't have to check with me or anything like that. Just have a good time. What do you want from me? I'm not your enemy. I'm teaching you. And if I teach you and you use it, I'm going to get upset. Are you kidding? No. Okay. So what did he do with Zelensky? So he told Zelensky in Ukraine. Now, do I have to remind you that Zelensky is a Jew? Okay, I've reminded you. Draw your own conclusions. Do you know that in Trump's cabinet, there's either 22 or 26 cabinet level people. Now, why is there a discrepancy? Because it depends on how you're interpreting these things. 22 were Senate approved, and I think 4 were not, but they have the cabinet level position. So it's either 22 or 26. Now, does anybody know how many of these are Jews? I do. 1. Lipnick in Department of Commerce. Department of Commerce, as in make money grubbing, that, all right? Am I getting through? 1 out of 26, potentially, right? Zelensky's Jewish. We're Jewish here in Israel. Okay. Anybody want to draw their own conclusions? Go ahead. So he's telling Zelensky that he has to let Putin have all the land in Ukraine that Putin has occupied with his military. So that's a loss of territory. Okay? He also has to understand that he's never going to be allowed to join NATO. Ukraine will never be in NATO. Okay? And that's the crux of the matter. The war would stop, Putin would stop fighting. It appears that Putin's okay with this. Okay? Putin seems to be no problem. All right? And Trump is telling Zelensky, who protested about this, by the way, this plan went to the UN, the 28-point thing, just like what he did with Gaza. He's trying to do it again. So he's trying to play president of the world. He's not president of the United States. So he's what's called the great voice in the prophecies in Jeremiah 50:51 about the daughter of Babylon. Okay, he's also referred to as the hammer of the whole earth. In Jeremiah 50 and 51, the prophecies about daughter of Babylon being destroyed. So it's rather obvious that he is the great voice and the hammer of the whole earth. And it says also the nations come to him to gather together. Well, they do that. I believe it's 49th Street or 47th Street by the East River. It's a building they have there called the United Nations, and all the nations go there. Okay? So Zelensky's never going to be in NATO. His military is being downgraded to 600,000 troops maximum. which is still a pretty substantial amount of military. Let's not kid ourselves, okay? And if Zelensky doesn't do this, Trump is not going to give any weapons or sell any weapons or transfer any weapons to Ukraine. In addition, he's not going to sell or transfer or give any weapons to European countries that will be in turn giving it to Zelensky. And Trump will cut off all intelligence assistance given to Zelensky, like targeting packages for missiles inside Russia and stuff like that. So the only way this works is if the European countries decide they want Zelensky to keep fighting and they don't care about Putin. Could they do this? Yes. Does it look like they will? No. No. Because if they keep giving weapons to Zelensky, what Trump will do, and it's reflex here, we know it, he'll turn around and say, if you're giving weapons to Zelensky, I'm not selling any weapons to you. Because I can't trust you, and that kind of thing. So what does Zelensky do? Well, let me lay it out for you. If he loses Trump's assistance, and he's probably going to lose a lot of Europe's assistance, he's going to get overrun by Putin. He may kick around for a month or two till he runs out of weapons, and then Russia's going to blow him over. Now, why is Trump doing this? Because Satan's worried about wars. Because certain people we know are tossing unclean spirits out of world leaders. And doing other kinds of spiritual warfare to them. So they're worried they're going to be in a war and they're not going to be able to have access to their demons and have their demons help them and work them, and they're scared to death about this. So that's why they're doing this. They don't know what'll happen. That's my take on it. You can disagree with me. Go ahead. So they're nervous. They're very, very nervous. So they want it to stop. Now, Putin has been tenacious and doesn't want to get any kind of a ceasefire going unless he grabs that land in Ukraine. He's not quitting. So Trump realizes that Putin ain't quitting, and he realizes that he has to keep feeding Ukraine weapons, and eventually I think he realizes Ukraine may blow it. But in any event, he made a decision to stab Zelensky in the back. And basically, Zelensky fought this war for nothing. Again, it's the old Kissinger doctrine, nobody wins a war except America. Well, the bad news for America is this. They lost the Korean War because all they got out of that was a ceasefire. Okay, they lost in Vietnam, they had to retreat. Right? Other battles, they lost Afghanistan, they had to withdraw, right? They did seem to save Kuwait from Saddam Hussein, that they did do, but, big deal. And that's about it. They don't win wars. Okay, let me get into some of the other things going on. Americans are spending less for the holidays. These are the holidays, Thanksgiving to New Year's. That's your holiday, predominantly Christmas. Retailers are scrambling to adapt. Companies have been buffeted by 3 years of inflation, worsened by recent trade war tariffs, the tariff wars, and shoppers are um, chasing discounts. The shoppers want discounts. I see now they're discounting, designer kind of overpriced items like perfume and sunglasses and things like that. Or clothing is being offered at substantial discounts now, and you haven't even got to Thanksgiving, let alone Black Friday. Their companies are doing pre-Black Friday sales now with steep discounts in some cases. Retailers, I can tell you right now, are being afraid of getting stuck with merchandise because they manufactured greater quantities than they could sell. There's a cross-country storm about to hit America, the continuing whirlwind of the Lord falling on the head of the wicked until it accomplishes its purpose. Says a cross-country storm set to disrupt Thanksgiving travel in America. The storm comes as a record 82 million Americans are projected to travel during the Thanksgiving holidays, according to the American Automobile Association, AAA. 82 million people traveling over a 4-day holiday. Man, it's rough at these airports with what goes on. At least he got rid of the shutdown, so the air traffic controllers are working full-fledged. So without them, it'd be really bad. The Standard & Poor's, I believe it was the 500, it could have been the 100, I'm not sure, but it's an index of stocks. The Standard & Poor index fell roughly $2 trillion in market value very rapidly. It was about 5 hours. On Thursday, November 20th, today is the 22nd, so okay. It's not that far gone. It was Thursday. The S&P, it was the 500. It was. I had it right. Had one of the fastest reversals in years, swinging from strong gains to a sharp sell-off. This was choreographed. Rest assured, it's fixed. If it wasn't rigged, it wouldn't exist. You wouldn't be able to gamble on these things if they weren't rigged. And it's gambling. There's no stock market invested. You're gambling. The only way you can really make any money on the stock market is if you're using computer programs. But years ago, they got their artificial intelligence stuff working, and you might be able to go in there and tweak yourself out a few $100,000 a year of earnings. But, you'd have to specialize in a few stocks and run auctions and different things, and you might make yourself some money. But that's not playing the market the way they want you to play it. You're just running numbers, and I think you could do it, but I often ask the Lord if he would let me do that. I know how to do it. I studied the market years ago. I have a good idea, but he never really wanted me to do that, so I didn't do it. All you're doing is sitting around working. You start, I don't know what, 9:30 in the morning when they open the market, whatever it is, and it closes at 3:30, or I think that's it, the New York Exchange. And you're just working numbers. You don't have a real job. You're sitting in the house and you're cranking numbers, and you could go 24 hours a day and do this all around the world, and all you're doing is making money. You have no other purpose. So he doesn't let me do it. So they're going to give you alibi stories about market conditions and sell-off and stuff like that. But it's rigged. If they can't fix it, it's never going to be allowed. Okay? So they only come up with things that they know how to rig. If they can't rig it, it doesn't exist for gambling. And the stock is gambling. I mean, don't get yourself convinced that it's not. Of course it is. Okay. All right. I think we beat the Zelensky thing down into the ground. By the way, Ukraine declined to take Trump up on this. What Trump is doing for Ukraine doesn't believe in, and that's he's getting Ukraine out of the war in one piece, and there still is a Ukraine and a Kiev, and they could rebuild and stuff like that. But this is all about Trump the peacemaker. Yeah. But till we talk about Venezuela, we didn't get there yet. The Federal Aviation Authority called the administration, rather, the Federal Aviation Administration called the FAA. They got special agents too. I don't know what the heck they do, investigate plane crashes or something. I don't know. Issued a security advisory, maybe anti-terrorism, I don't know. A security of background investigations on people, I guess. I don't know. So I doubt they do backgrounds. The FBI or Civil Service Administration would do that. The Federal Aviation Authority, FAA, administration rather, issued a security advisory called a NOTAM. It's a no-fly notice. On the 21st of November. Today's the 22nd of November, so it's not exactly stale news. It's yesterday, okay? Citing heightened military activity and a potential risk to aircraft at all altitudes, including in departure, arrival phases, and while on the ground. So it's a full-blown NOTAM. The advisory requires operators planning flights in the affected area to provide 72-hour advance notice to the FAA. So basically, the companies are going to decline to fly there. Separate operational NOTAMs exist for specific airports in Venezuela. This is separate. For example, Simon Bolivar International Airport, ICAO listing runway closures, taxiway restrictions, and suspended approach procedures. So this is very big. And that would probably be a very strong indication that Trump intends to be attacking Venezuela via aircraft and missiles and drones, and doesn't want to have to worry about hurting some civilian aircraft from some country. Okay, so when Trump's going to start, I don't know, but I think we're on any day or any hour notice now. The Orishnik missiles, did Russia give any of these to Venezuela? Well, maybe not, and maybe this Ukraine-Russia peace plan was, Trump saying, well, I'm going to give Tomahawks to Ukraine, and then Putin said, well, I'm going to give Oreshnik missiles to Maduro in Venezuela. How are you going to like that, Donald? See what I'm saying? The Oreshnik could reach nicely into America. What would America do? Go and say, well, Putin gave Oreshniks to Venezuela just because I gave Tomahawks to Zelensky. Well, it makes Trump look bad. Why'd you give Tomahawks to Zelensky? Is this a likely interface of what really happened? Yes. Because Putin's going for this peace plan. I mean, Zelensky saying, no, we object, we're not doing this, blah, blah, blah. Putin's not objecting. Putin sat down with Trump on the phone and they figured it out. That means China won't veto it, and Putin won't veto it, and Trump won't veto it, and the UK won't veto it, and it'll go through. What happens next? The sanctions start to come off Russia, and Russia's economy can start to return, and things of that nature. What's going to happen with Ukraine? I don't know, guys. There is a strong chance that Ukraine might get Europe to back him because they really don't want to see Russia come out on this one. They're afraid. Trump's not afraid. America's not in Europe. So Trump's not that worried about it. So it could blow up. And that also might explain why Trump is waiting on Venezuela. He doesn't want to get into a tizzy with Venezuela, and then Putin gives them the Orishnik missiles, and they start using them in America because America's attacking Venezuela, so they're going to attack back. So they would just tell the UN, hey, he tells me I'm a drug dealer and starts blowing my country up, so I fight back. What are they going to say? They'll say Trump is wrong. What do you think they'll say? Did Trump stab Zelensky in the back? Yes. So they're making Gaza into a place where there's a Hamas-free zone. That's the one administered by Israel, the yellow line area closest to Israel or to the east. Romania intercepts, this is so curious, a missile shipment. A driver in a truck bound for Israel in Romania. Romania Customs found LGLA missiles and Stinger missiles, or is it, I don't know, some kind of missile and Stinger missiles in this truck in Romania. And their customs inspection let me get it. So there was Stingers, Cornet missile launchers, RPGs, but Israel doesn't use rocket-propelled grenades. And Russian drone parts. Israel using Russian drone parts? No, that makes no sense. Nor does the RPGs. Hidden. Oh, wait a minute, this thing moved on me. So they said they were hidden in a truck at Moldovan border, the Moldova border. The driver claims the load was meant for Israel. Moldovan lawmakers suspect Ukraine linked smuggling ring. And they're seeking a joint probe. I don't believe these weapons were scheduled for Israel at all, but they're saying they were based on nothing. I just would like to remind you that during the World War II years, the Romanians were responsible for the death of about 300,000 Jews. Just saying. Okay, Chicago. Alderman the Chicago, some alderman up there. That's a city politician, like a county board of supervisors position, something like that. Alderman said 300 juveniles rioting in the loop now. At least 5 victims shot, 1 critical with life-threatening gunshot wound to the torso. Multiple police officers attacked and injured with mace and stun guns. At least 1 police officer hospitalized. So they're using mace and stun guns on the police. They didn't say taser, stun guns. Stun guns are not that effective. In Hollywood, they touch people with a stun gun and the person passes out. Well, they have a taser they could shoot the person with, or you can use it as a handheld stun gun and touch it to the person for a few seconds and they'll fall down in great pain. But that's not the same as knocking them out. And that's the taser that does that. The civilian, well, you can buy a taser in many jurisdictions in America, so I guess it does work. The weapons companies are always snots in America. They have the taser for the police has more voltage or more power than the civilian version, but the civilian version probably works well anyway. If one was worried about it, they could take 2 tasers and bind them together. There's a lot of ways you can bind them together. You could use duct tape or more, glue or both or something, and put a laser sight on one, which would work for the other, I think, and just shoot the guy with 2 tasers. I've never got involved with the taser thinking it's a good weapon. I was exposed to it in the 70s, and I don't go for these non-lethal weapons. I think you're going to wind up getting yourself in a lot of hot water with those for nothing. Number one, you could definitely go to jail for a non-lethal weapon, for assault. And when you shoot somebody with a gun, you don't always kill them, and you can get in trouble for aggravated assault, all kinds of things, okay? Homicide, bad things. And they don't have the ability normally to stop somebody cold like a 45 ACP bullet would. It doesn't do that. Now there's a company called Byrne, Byrne, that's really getting popular. They're making guns with CO2 power. So you put a CO2 cartridge like that in the gun, and you turn it, and the gas gets released, and they got balls. They could make them out of plastic. They could, like a bullet, they can make it out of metal. And you shoot those at, a few hundred feet per second. Like maybe you get 350 feet per second or something like that, or probably not even. A low speed bullet is 650 feet per second. They don't get anywhere near that. So it has to be non-lethal. But if you shoot somebody in the head, it might cause a problem for them, right? So you shoot those things. The gun has a clip of, I believe, about 5 balls, little bullets in it, and you shoot that at a person, and supposedly it hurts them and makes them fall down, and my gosh, why do people think it's going to work? What do you do if somebody has a heavy motorcycle leather jacket on, horsehide? You're going to hit them. What's that going to do? Probably very little of anything. Or if somebody had a heavy wool coat on, it would greatly insulate it. If someone had a down jacket on, it probably wouldn't do much at all. And then this thing also shoots pepper spray. Listen, all you got to do is get a paintball gun, which they sell with a big air canister, and it shoots like a machine gun. You know, boom, 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 right? And freeze the balls. Now, you can't carry them around for a long time, but if you freeze them, I mean, you put them in the freezer for a few hours, they're hard as a rock. And then if you shoot somebody with them, how are they going to know that it was frozen? Because by the time they get to collecting evidence, they're melted. They might figure it out. I don't know. But I would never bother with those things. They don't do anything. They're not, you're trying to deter somebody who may not want to be deterred, you know. So if you went up with one of these guns and went over to somebody and shot him 3 or 4 times and said, "Give me your money or I'm going to keep shooting you," it would probably work for that. But to get the robbers with it, no, I don't think it'll work. People are buying these things. There's stores opening up that just sell these things. They got a little shooting gallery inside where the people can test and shoot it. And I don't know what they want to do with it. You know, I have no idea. You can buy with compressed air or CO2 cartridges, machine guns. They're not controlled. They're not real guns that shoot little BBs and pellets and stuff like that. But they're not going to. They do have pellet guns and for balls also, rifles usually. China makes them. They could be $1,000. And some of them you just pump up with air. Some of them you have a tank or this and that. And they go about 1,000 feet per second. They're small projectiles. But could you really hurt somebody with these? Yes. Could you kill somebody? Maybe. With a headshot or something like that. But the downside with these is you can't, unless they've improved it, you can't get multiple shots off because you run out of the gas. And, you know, but they may have improved these. I don't follow them anymore. But years ago, like 3 years ago, they had them that were really going very fast, even over 1,000 feet per second, but small. But that would still cause a problem. What you really want to see this thing do, and they have these too, is have like a 50 caliber round ball made out of metal. And it would probably be hollow metal, but it would still cause a problem. And get that to move at least 600-700 feet per second. And shoot somebody with that, and you're going to get a lot of pain. Now, many years ago when I was in the gun business, a guy came in and he had something, he sold it to me, a guy sold it to me. What it is, it was used in a Steve McQueen movie where he played a bounty hunter. Probably the movie goes back to the 80s. He had an old car, like a 1951 car he drove. Okay. This thing, I try to describe it to you. It had a handle, like a nightstick handle, and it was a big tube, like about like this, right? And it had a bean bag in there. And the bean bag was like a canvas cloth bag full of shot, metal shot. And I actually had a fabric. It was kind of round, actually more so than square. And it was about that thick and about like that. And you shoved it down the barrel of this thing. And you had a foam stopper, a little piece of foam rubber that fit the barrel. You pushed it in and had enough friction to hold the beanbag in place. So if you turned it upside down, the beanbag would be there, okay? And it had a CO2 cartridge. And it would use about the whole, I think it was the whole CO2 cartridge or half of it or something. That's a lot, okay? Now, this was a heavy thing, but it wouldn't penetrate your body. But it would work on clothing. Now, if somebody had a, uh, let's say they had a big motorcycle jacket made out of horsehide, a Schott, SCHOTT jacket, a real thick, heavy one that they used to use, so if they fell off the motorcycle, it would give them some resistance and not, they wouldn't, the concrete wouldn't skin them, the jacket would hold them. These things are heavy and they're hard jackets, you know. If you had one of those on and somebody shot you with the beanbag, would it still work? Yeah, it would. If you had one of those on and you had a bulletproof vest under it, would that still work? Well, it would diminish it a lot, I think. A lot. If you had one of those vests on that would stop rifle bullets, the plates are usually small, they're like 10 by 12 or something. It would probably break the plate, but okay, I'll tell you what I did. I took one of these and I took the beanbag was reusable, and I put a cartridge in there. And I had this old sofa that was years old. And it was a weird one, you know. I got it used. Okay, so it was many years old. And I stood back 5-6 feet from the sofa. And I fired the beanbag at the sofa. It didn't knock the sofa over, but I saw a cloud of dust come out of the sofa that was really shockingly a surprise. A big cloud of dust came out of that thing. And that told me that this thing really would work. Now, I might have bought it new. I don't remember. I bought it. I remember now in the gun store that I was working in, I sold it to somebody. I was thinking I bought it from somebody in the gun store. No, I think I ordered it. I don't remember where I got it. I can't remember. It was not a lot of money back in the day. It was about $69 or $100 or something. And it was a one-shot item. After that, you were left with this hard plastic thing. It was about more than a quarter of an inch, maybe 3/8 or even a half-inch thick plastic. And very hard, durable plastic. And it had a handle. So you had a club, is what you had left. And you had about 10 inches of this thing. You had a club, an effective club. You could also probe with it. And it was pretty wide, but you could. So you had a one-shot deal with this. So if you were going to try to do it at, I would say, more than 10 feet, you might miss. Okay? And you really had to get the drop on a guy with this. It wasn't, you didn't want to point it at him. The guy could run away, you know, or move out of the way. Well, it traveled rather fast, you know. I would say it traveled about as fast as an air rifle BB. Pretty quick. I mean, you fired it, and then it would hit, you know, I was a few feet away. I fired it, you know, right away it hit it. I didn't have a chronograph on it. So, was that an effective non-lethal weapon? Yes. Yes, but it was very limiting. And what it would be good for is somebody like a bounty hunter. It might be good for a bouncer in a nightclub. You keep it concealed, and if somebody's really acting up, you could use that and shoot them in the abdomen, in the stomach area or something like that. But it would be quite a bit of punishment, you know, for that. So what application would it have? Somebody comes into your house and break in, You use it on them. Oh, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, that's pretty stupid. Uh, yeah, it might work. Keep it in the car, if somebody comes. Some driver is stressed out and wants to come beat you up in the car because he didn't like the way you were driving or something like that. You can push the window down when he's standing right by the window and just shoot him in the chest or the abdomen. If you hit him in the head, you're probably going to knock him out, and you might give him a coma. If you hit him in the eye, you're probably going to ruin his eye. If you hit him in the nose, his nose is going to I'm sure, get smashed. If you hit him in the teeth, you're going to knock his teeth out. I believe you can buy these things still. I don't think they were ever made illegal, but you could sure go to jail for using one of these things. You know. The guy I sold it to was being tormented by some individual who was threatening to come get him, and he didn't want to have a gun. Maybe he had a prison record, or maybe he was afraid to shoot the guy. I don't know. So he used this. If you don't shoot the guy in the head, you're probably going to get away with it. If the guy was doing something bad to you, if you walk up on the street to a guy, you just shoot him with it, could you mug him? Yeah. Yeah. But muggers don't generally bother with things like that. It's a big, bulky thing. It never caught on. But that's the only non-lethal weapon that I came across. Now, there's other things like nunchaka, but that's lethal. Now, you could take two wrenches, like monkey wrenches. They have a hole in the bottom of the handle. You tie them, you attach them together with chains, or you could use rope. And you swing them like nunchaka, and you hit somebody in the head, you're going to go clear into their head and kill them instantly. It's going to go right into their brain. So is that a non-lethal weapon? I don't think so. If you hit somebody in the arm, you're going to shatter their arm. That's non-lethal, but it's rather punitive. A baseball bat is non-lethal too. If you hit the guy in the derriere or the leg, but what if you hit him in the head? Well, now it's lethal. See what I'm saying? So there's all different. What if you take a samurai sword, a katana, and you stick the guy in his buttocks? It's not lethal. It'll hurt. But what if you stick it in his neck? Well, now it's lethal. You see, there's all different kinds of weapons, and non-lethal seems to have the connotation that you can't make it deadly. But I think if you bought a paintball gun that has a big tank of air and it shoots nice big plastic balls, and you freeze these plastic balls so they're hard as a rock, and it goes boom, 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 and you hit somebody, multiple times in the head, it's lethal, I would think. If you hit him in the body, I don't think it would be lethal. So, Chicago's having problems, and when we read in Jeremiah 50:51, violence in the land, well, there you go. An IDF spokesman published footage of an attempt by terrorists to escape from tunnels in East Rafah, as seen by IDF observers. Some of these guys got killed. So it looks to me that all the indications are something will happen in Venezuela. I couldn't tell you when for sure, but there's a tremendous amount of assets in the area, and Trump is mad at Venezuela, and is more than likely trying to get Venezuela to, submit to what he wants, but it's not happening. And what the reports are is Venezuela's positioning missiles and defenses, moving troops and other equipment around. So they're not, really submitting. I haven't heard of Trump and Maduro sitting down and having a powwow, which is, I don't know why that hasn't happened, but it hasn't happened. Is it likely to happen? Well, if it didn't happen yet and things got this far, no, it's not likely to happen. Frozen paintballs bounce. Yeah, if you have a frozen, but if you shoot somebody with them, they're very hard, and they're going to deliver a much more potent blow than the regular plastic will. You got to freeze them hard as a rock. You know how to make it come to pass. Bless the true Israelites. Question is who this person considers the true Israelites. I don't know. That's how the black Israelites talk. That they think we're phony Israelites. They also don't believe Yeshua is the Messiah, the Son of God, rose from the dead, and they got problems with who Yeshua is. They study their doctrine, they're all screwed up. I don't take them seriously at all. They say, who the Edom, they used to come in here years ago, who the Edomites are, and what their punchline is, we're the Edomites. No, it's not true, because Edom is Yemen. So it's a joke, I used to say, you're the Edomites. And they say, no, we're not, you are. They get all, why do you say I'm an Edomite? I used to do this with them, and they didn't have no scripture for it. They're an unscriptural crackpot cult that takes advantage of people, sadly, to get money out of them and build a phony satanic church with them, another one, as if there's not enough. And that's all it is. It's just stupid. Frozen paintballs aren't going to bounce like an unfrozen paintball, but that's not, in my opinion, a great idea. I mean, it's something that's going to make a paintball gun a lot more lethal, but trying to make non-lethal weapons, I think the whole concept is stupid. Either you have a weapon or you don't have a weapon. Non-lethal weapon is a club. A policeman's nightstick is a non-lethal weapon. A blackjack or a slapjack is a non-lethal weapon. You don't use it in the head. Now, when I was in law enforcement a million years ago, we used to have those. We had a pocket in our uniform pants, and we had the blackjack, which was a piece of lead round like this on a spring with a handle and it had a leather strap, and we'd stick it in the blackjack pocket of our pants with the strap hanging out, a loop, and you'd be able to grab it and go like that if you practice with it. You didn't have to practice a lot, you'd get it. And if you hit somebody upside the head someplace with that, with a good swing, you didn't have to go, you just had to go, like that. You didn't have to put everything into it. Like you're not trying to do Babe Ruth and hit the ball out of the park. You just give them a good whack. They would go down like they got struck by lightning. But the problem with that is they might not get up as if they got struck by lightning. They could be in a coma, they could come out and they're not the same anymore. So you had to be very, very careful about hitting people in the head with this thing big time. But if you hit people in the limbs with it, it would really break bones and hurt them, and it would be a lot easier for us to not have any problems with that. If the guy was trying to fight with you, or fighting with somebody else or something like that, he wouldn't submit to verbal commands, and you hit him in the elbow or something like that, or the knee or wherever, you're going to cause excruciating pain, and you might affect the break, but you're not going to put the guy in incapacitation land or anything like that, and there would likely be no blowback for it. Another way you could do it is to put lead inside a wooden club, a nightstick, like 26, 30-inch stick. You drill a hollow in the center, and you basically could fill it with shot. Just put little BBs in there, or lead shot in there, or you could pour molten lead in there, or you could do whatever you want to do. I never did it. I know it was done. First problem is you could break the nightstick real easy with that. So let's say you swung and you wound up hitting a door frame or something like that. You might break it. You got to schlep it around. It's heavier, and if you use the nightstick correctly, it's pretty darn effective. You don't have to worry. Now, the other thing you were able to use instead of the round blackjack is the slapjack, that was more of a flat pancake looking thing. And if you hit with the edge on that, it was excruciating. It was very, very hard and excruciatingly painful. You could just hit with the edge with that, or the slapjack. But if you go with that, like you look at Hollywood and you're hitting people in the head, or you're mugging somebody by hitting them from behind in the back of the head, you're going to probably kill them. That would be the thing you would use in a war setting if you wanted to come up on a sentry and he didn't have a helmet, which he always is going to have a helmet. But let's say you didn't have a helmet and you went and you hit him in the head with it, you wouldn't care what happened to the guy. You just want to knock him out. He'd go out like you threw his switch, but not necessarily like you hit his off button. If you walked up to him with a pistol, the silencer, put it behind his head and pulled the trigger, now you're throwing his off button. You're hitting the off button. But, it could vary, what you do with it. But those are very effective, but you got to learn how to use them. Somebody that gets good with the nightstick can keep 3 people or even 4 people at bay. You're using the thing as a prod. You jam it into somebody's guts, and it's like that thick, and it goes in, and it really can hurt them. You jam it in hard and fast with 2 hands, you're going to knock the wind out of them. Similar to shooting them with a beanbag thing in the abdomen, pretty similar. And if you hit them in the hands or the elbows or the knees, you're going to cause a lot of pain. These collapsible batons they have are crap. They don't do any good. Nobody uses those. They use them to break windows in cars if you got to get in or something like that, or maybe they want to move evidence around. You don't use it. It's pretty worthless. There was one made by, who the heck made it? I don't remember the company. It could have been Smith and Wesson. They made a big thick one out of real heavy metal back in the 90s. They stopped making it, and that worked. But they stopped selling it. It worked too good. It was too dangerous. They cut it out. They didn't want to get sued either. I'll be right back. Okay. Actually, there are some stun guns that work now. I forgot the name of the company. They're not that expensive. The company makes the pepper spray. You could research it on YouTube. They're pretty good. They're not expensive either. What it does is it causes a very painful pain when you touch somebody with it. If you hold it on their short ribs for 4 to 6 seconds while you're putting electricity into them, they can collapse. But most people aren't capable of doing that. When I was in the gun business, I thought it would be good to get into stun guns, so I started researching. And I found out that they were using stun guns in San Quentin prison that worked. More than one guard would hold a guy while one of them put the stun gun on the short ribs and he would collapse. Then they would put restraints on him and carry him to have the doctor check him and then put him in solitary or something. So I tracked it down. And I got them to sell me the model that they were using in San Quentin as well as other models they made. So I brought them into stock. And I took one, I believe I paid for it wholesale, the one they were using in San Quentin. And when it came in the box, I was standing up it was early in the morning, nobody was in the gun store. It wasn't a gun, so I think it came UPS or something. I mean, it was easy shipping. It didn't have to be handled as a gun. So I opened the box, and I was in there, and I went to take it out, and it had a battery in it, and it was live, and I must have hit the power button, and I stunned myself in the finger. And what happened to me is I got freaked out. I was like this, and then I didn't know what happened. And I was not right for 3 minutes. That was just maybe at most a half a second stun. I jerked away from it, and I said, wow, that's interesting. Then, since I was having stun guns around the store, I had the unfortunate experience of stunning myself, typically in the hand, several times. And guess what? I got kind of used to it. It didn't have any effect on me anymore. I'd pull away and it was it. Like no effect. Then one day, I had the thing in an inside coat pocket or a shirt pocket. No, it was a coat pocket. And I went shopping. And I was bending to put something in the car or take something out of the car. And I managed to get the thing to go off right where my heart is, right where my nipple is. And I'm like, whoa, And in a few seconds I was fine. Maybe 10, 15 seconds I got confused. Because I was scared I hurt my heart. Nothing. So I had a customer that I became friends with that was a former Navy SEAL. And he used to work as a polygraph examiner and private detective, and he was in the store. We used to hang out. He was a good guy. So he worked as a bouncer in some club. He was a big guy. So we played around with the stun guns, and he liked the idea. He bought one. A week later or something like that, he comes in the store and tells me, I used the stun gun last night. I said, what happened? And he said, well, the guy went down and he peed himself. I said, really? He said, yeah. He held it on the ribs. He was a big guy. So he held it on the guy, and the guy collapsed. He said he was more than happy about that because he didn't really have to hurt the guy. When it's over, they recover. They don't have broken bones. They don't have, contusions and black and blue marks and broken skin and all of that stuff. So that was interesting. But there is a company now that makes one. The same company makes a pepper spray, and it does good. Now, bear spray, it's a good sized can, usually about like this. Yeah, it's good. So they have big ones too, I guess. I don't know. Different size bear spray. It's to get grizzly bear and brown bear away from you. And it could go 30 feet. I mean, it depends on the manufacturer. And it blows a cloud, a big cloud like this, So it envelops the bear in a burst of pepper spray. And it irritates the bear's nose and mouth and eyes. Of course, trouble for the bear, and the idea is to get the bear to run away, leave you alone, or you run away and he stays there. And with bear spray, you don't have to aim very carefully. You don't have to be 5 or 10 feet away. But the judge might ask you, if you were in danger or in fear of your life, why were you spraying bear spray at somebody 30 feet away? You got to be prepared to answer that. But you could hit 2 or 3 people with one burst. Usually a big can of it would have more than one burst in it. Okay? To really saturate them with it. Now, you might not be allowed to use this in some jurisdictions. I don't know. I'll tell you another one that I like. I actually have it in my pocket because I use it for different things. This is a 4,000 lumen flashlight. It's rechargeable with USB. I forgot the name. Oh, right. I don't remember who makes it, but you can find them on Amazon. This is what they look like. They got a clip. Looks like that. That's the thing at the end. This is metal. You can drop it all you want. I drop it all the time. Nothing happens. And it has, I'll put it on low. That's low. Now, when I crank it up, okay. Now that's the daytime. If you put that at somebody's eyes at night with 4,000 lumens, they can't see. They can't come after you. They can't do anything. Okay, and look at the size of this thing. Now, if I want to use it like a flashlight, I just turn it on low. Okay, but then I could progress it and make it brighter. Now, we're in daylight, okay, and you're seeing that. But let me see what happens if I try to look at it. I could see, but not well with it in daylight. It bothers me. It's not anything I really want to stay with. That's 4,000 lumens at maximum, okay? And that's real small. So if I was walking around the street and I was having trouble, let's say a dog was following me, and I didn't like that, instead of pepper spraying the thing, I could turn around and give him a shot in his eyes. He's not going to want to come after me anymore. Now, the dogs still have smell and hearing, but they don't have vision when you do that. His vision will go, because he's not going to cover up and know what's going on. He's going to look at the light, try to figure out what it is, and then he's not going to have his vision for a minute or two. Don't stand still, because he might remember where you are. Move a few feet, and he's probably not going to find you. And then leave it on and keep shining it at him if he stays at you, So you're going to have like a pepper spray kind of effect. Now, what's to stop you from having this little flashlight in one hand and pepper spray in the other hand? Nothing. They're two legal, not usually legal. In some places like the UK, it's not legal, but usually legal. In Israel, it's legal to have a pepper spray, and they have no control over the flashlight, right? Nothing. And you can spray them with pepper spray. I'm not talking about dogs, some person trying to bother you. You could hit them, mug you, rob you, or something, hit them with the pepper spray and then the flashlight, or the flashlight, then the pepper spray. The only problem you're going to have with the court is when you got him with the pepper spray, what happened? Oh, his eyes closed. Well, why did you shine the flashlight at him? But they're probably not, because it's just a flashlight. And pepper spray is, not permanent at all, not even close. So, the guys, they're not going to be, the judges are going to be more or less, well, I wish more people didn't use, lethal force. And, they're not going to do much to you, I don't think. Okay? So that's the other kind of pepper spray other than bear spray. Some jurisdictions you got to check may not let you have the bear spray because it's got a high concentration. But they have some of this pepper spray that comes in a foam. It looks like shaving cream, and it shoots pretty far. So you can pepper spray somebody with that foam, and it stays on their face, and they start rubbing it. It just pushes it in the skin and the eyes. So it makes it harder for them to recover and get rid of and stuff like that. Okay. What a cop will do if they see pepper spray, they'll put their hand up and turn away because they don't want to lose their vision, Of course, wearing sunglasses stops most of it. And at night, if you wear, let's say you buy a heavy-duty motorcycle sunglass that's really durable, that wraps around your eyes pretty good, and it is a sunglass. When the sun is bright, it goes dark, and when the sun's not out, it's clear glass, and you wear that, you're not going to get, it's going to dissipate. It's not going to do much to you. If they're good wraparounds, and they come right up against the skin, like these are, these would come, they come right up all around, and the pepper spray's not really going to do much damage if I had that on. You're going to get some eye irritation, but it's all going to be on the sunglasses, and when you remove those away from your eye, let's say sticking in a pocket or something like that, you're not going to get the irritant. It's not going to work. They could shoot you again with pepper spray, So there actually are things you could use that. So if you use a high-powered flashlight and pepper spray, that really has a pretty solid incapacitating effect. Briefly, though, you got to get the heck out of there. You know, you got maybe 30 seconds, a minute. You know, you don't have a long time. You got to get out of there. Okay. Um, yeah, and that's, now to really bother somebody at night, you need at least 2,000 lumens as a bare minimum. Okay. This thing is 4,000. But you can buy flashlights that have 35,000 lumen, 50,000 lumen that aren't that big, and they're USB rechargeable. Now, something like that in the daylight is going to wreck their vision. 35, 50,000 lumen flashlight in the daytime, if you get it 2 or 3 feet away from them, they're going to have to turn away. They're not going to be able to look at you. Now, if somebody turns away, you could shoot them with pepper spray from the side, or if, let's say, society is broken down and you got a Bowie knife and this guy was trying to kill you, well, you could shine the flashlight at him and then just shove the Bowie knife in him, Why not? I'm talking the government is gone and people are trying to go kill you for some reason, You try that now, they'll put you in jail because when you incapacitated him, it took his vision away with the bright light. The person was no longer a threat, so why did you stab him? If you shine the flashlight at him and you run away, 99% of the judges are going to be on your side. If you shoot them with pepper spray, assuming they were doing something wrong, and then you run away, 99% of the judges are going to be on your side. Especially if the guy has priors and stuff like that. If you use both, it'd still probably be on your side, but then the judge wants to know why you were doing both, Now, if you use a walking stick, and a company called Cold Steel makes some that are made out of polymer that are extremely durable, they don't break, they'll support weight, and they could make a good weapon. You can prod, with them, and you could club. One hand, two hand, you have to learn how to use them, you have to get somebody to teach you or watch videos and practice. If you have a good amount of martial arts experience, you can teach yourself how to use it with the videos, Assuming your martial arts experience had some kind of weapons in it, you'd be okay. And you can use that with a flashlight or pepper spray, but that's taking things to another level, Now, if you go after a cop with a walking stick, he's going to say that was deadly force, because if the guy hit me in the head or the neck, I could die and use a gun against you. So that could be deadly force weapon too. You got to get into that. Also, it's not necessarily just, not non-lethal, So I tend to tell people that the non-lethal stuff doesn't really cut it. You could make non-lethal quite lethal if you use these high-powered flashlights and or pepper spray with a Bowie knife. You got a winner. And everything's quiet. The pepper spray doesn't make noise, the flashlight doesn't make noise, and the Bowie knife doesn't make noise. But I would never tell you to do anything like that in a civilized society, because they'll run you up the flagpole and throw you in the jail. But if there is no government anymore, everything is broken down, and all the chaos is setting in and you're afraid of your life, you have to pay attention to the Lord too. You can't just go around murdering people because there's no government. It has to be somebody that's trying to really hurt you. Okay, and you don't always have to kill them to get them out of your life either. But you got to pay attention to that. You don't want to be a murderer. You know, being a self-defender is not being a murderer. But if you could get rid of them without killing them or really hurting them, it's better. But if they're stalking you or something like that, it could be another matter. You got to search the Lord on what the individual circumstances are, because I don't know. But you got to pay attention to not being a murderer. Just because there's no government doesn't mean the Lord won't hold you responsible for that. So you got to be careful. Okay. If someone breaks into your house at night, you could do what you want with them. There's scriptures to that effect. You could do it. You could kill them, if they come in at night. In the daytime, no. That's the scriptures, but that's breaking into the house. What if they are just assaulting you out in the street, or they want to pull a gun on you or something like that, So you don't know what they're going to do. I had a friend many years ago. His father owned a parking garage in, I think it was in Manhattan. And he took a lot of money in. He wasn't a really wealthy guy, but he did pretty good. And people, where he was in his office, where the people would come in and pay him and then get their car. Two robbers, I think it was two, came in and pulled the gun on him and took his receipts. So instead of pulling his own gun out, apparently he didn't have one. He was doing what the jerk police tell you to do, just comply. Well, that's not what I would say to do, but he complied, and they told him to turn around, and he did. And then they shot him a couple of times in the back, and he wound up in very bad shape, and they had to do a lobotomy on him. So basically, a lobotomy does something where they reduce your brain function. I don't know, to cure you of pain, or I don't know what it was, but they did it to him. This is 55 years ago, and he just sat around the house watching TV, and his kid took over running the garage. So that is, I don't know if they ever caught the guys or anything. So that just goes to show you that, that's what happens when you do compliance. The best thing to do, what the guy probably should have done, being in New York, is had a little booth built. He has his stand, and then he has a desk in there, or a counter. Line it with 1/4-inch steel plate down there that'll stop the pistols all day long, and then have the bulletproof glass on the top of the counter wrap around, and have a metal door. They can lock themselves in that area. Now when people come in, they put their money in a little drawer thing, and he slides the drawer so they can't stick a gun through there, and then you're not going to get robbed. That would be the best way to go. And then to back yourself up, put a gun, have a gun in there, get an on-premises permission from the government of the New York City to keep a gun, and that's all you got to do. So the gun would be just if they decided they wanted to break your system down and get you, you just show them the gun, and they're going to leave. They're going to say, what could they do? They'll leave. They're not going to start up with you. They'll get killed. So that would be the best way to do it. Second best would be to have a gun on your person and have a bulletproof vest. Um, you know, a soft vest that stops all the handguns would probably work. But they could shoot you in the neck, they could shoot you in the leg, the arm, the head. It's not that effective. Other people use trained dogs. That's maybe a little effective. What's to stop them from shooting the dog? The dog starts advancing to them, they just shoot the dog. It's easy to stop a dog. A 38 or 357 or 9mm is going to put the dog down. Unless you get some real psycho dog like a Neapolitan Mastiff or a Boa Bell, or, they got these Boa Bells, they use them in Africa against, things like cheetahs and real lions. Real lions. They use them against cheetahs, leopards, and real lions that come around to eat their livestock. The people might have cows, goats, whatever. Also, people could just be doing an agricultural farm, or they just live in the country for whatever reason, and they know that lions will wander around, and come on the property, and a lion could eat a human. It's not normally what they do, but it could happen. So they get now one or two Boa Bells isn't going to work. It would work with a leopard and it would work with a cheetah. Two of them would be able to handle it. They'd get busted up some, but they'd come out on top. But a Boa Bell could be 200 pounds. 150 anyway, 150, 200 pounds, 220. These things are unbelievably tough. They got a head like a bear, Their teeth are going to be the size of, they're going to be like a leopard or cheetah teeth. Their incisors are close to it. And they're going to have more jaw pressure than the leopard does, probably, or the cheetah. And they could really punish these animals when they grab the animal, and they will grab the animal, and they start biting and shaking it. Now, a 200-pound Boa Bill could take a 125-pound leopard or cheetah and start shaking it in his mouth. Don't worry about that. And the cheetahs could go into shock, or, they're going to be scratching and squirming, but it's a punishing bite. But the way this really works is they get a half a dozen of these dogs. And then whatever comes around, lions, hyenas, a half a dozen dogs that are on the aggression, that are closing in on the lion or the cheetah or whatever the heck it is, going after them, surrounding it, getting ready to rip it apart. No. Lion says it's time to leave. And he's going to get out of there. Now, what would happen if you had 5 or 6 lions come in? That would probably never occur. But if it did, then the dogs would fight anyway. And the lions would sit there and they would size it up and they would say, well, do we want to go through with this? Or let's just get out of here because we're going to get hurt. See, the lions aren't going to be sitting there and saying, oh, we could win, because they're going to get hurt. They're just sitting there saying, well, we're going to get hurt. These dogs are crazy. They're going to bite us. And if we get bit, we're not going to go to the vet and get antibiotics and get the wound cleaned. They don't think that way. They know enough to know that if they get wounded, they could die. So they would probably leave. But you're normally not going to have a pack of lions walk onto your property, So those dogs, people in America and other countries have them. They tend to bond with the family, and they're very nice to the family, but they're not going to be nice to strangers. And they've got a lot of confidence. So if a 25-pound dog walks across your property, a beagle or something like that, they're going to make sure that the beagle never comes back again, but they're probably not going to hurt it. They'll just run at it and yell at it and bark. They don't have to go kill the poor dog. They're not going to They just want to get rid of the dog, get it to never come back, and they'll scare it, that's all. The Neapolitan Mastiffs are another one, but they get up to about 125 pounds, and they can work on a mountain lion, probably a cheetah and a leopard, but I wouldn't think they're any good for anything bigger than that. They wouldn't work on a jaguar at 220 pounds. It would shred the dog. One dog against a leopard or a cheetah would not be enough. You'd want to have at least 3 or 4. 3 or 4 would work. One-on-one, they kill big wild boar, big ones. That's one-on-one. A wild boar is pretty tough. Generally speaking, a leopard or a cheetah doesn't mess with a wild boar. It's not an easy meal. It's very easy to get killed. They don't like it. They got big fangs. They got horns or tusks. They don't like it. So there's other dogs you could get too, that are that way. If you really were worried about people coming onto your property, the Neapolitan Mastiffs do the trick. You don't have to go for a barbell. The girl dogs are 100 pounds. The boys are 125. I don't even think you could really take them out with a baseball bat. I had them. I bred them. I sold them. I don't think you can. They're dark colored at night. They're very fast. They're unbelievably strong. Unbelievably strong. And they got jaw pressure through the roof, amazingly powerful, and their incisive teeth are, again, approaching that of a mountain lion or something like that. They're not quite that big, but they're getting there. And they got incredible jaw pressure. The thing is, the big cats got the claws, and that's the downside for the dog. They're going to bust the dog up some. Probably not kill it, but hurt it. They got a very tough hide, these dogs, but, after it's over, the dog's going to get antibiotics and get the wounds cleaned and healed up, and he's going to have to rest for a few days, and the dog will bounce out of it, but anyway, so dogs can be effective, but you got to remember that they just shoot the dog. Another way you can get a dog is with a spear or a pitchfork. The dog doesn't really understand what's happening till the pitchfork's in him, and then it's too late. So you gotta be careful with that kind of stuff. Let's see if we're getting any questions or. No, I don't think so. All right. So you got a good education today on spiritual warfare from what I did, and my discernment didn't detect anything else coming at any of us after that. So I don't think we're gonna be bothered by that. This person is likely gonna be going nuts. And when you demon toss them and do spiritual warfare on them, very frequently they go for alcohol, narcotics, Zoloft, Prozac, some won't go to street drugs, they'll go to the doctor. But now they know the gospel is real. And they know that their gods are not gods. How could their gods be a god if I can throw them out of the person? They know that much. So they might come around. Remember, Paul came around, and it was the church world, or the believers, I should say, were told, the ecclesia would be the correct word, the called out from among, were told that he's okay, he's switched sides, he's with God. Because they were a little nervous, but they trusted him. And he turned out to be an apostle, and he started out persecuting them. Now, they're not going to turn into apostles. The amount of apostles is fixed. There are no new apostles. It's only the original 12, although the Mormons claim to have them. I wouldn't pay much attention to it. They claim to have, they make apostles all the time there, but that's bogus, So that's really what we got, so whenever you fight in the spirit, you're going to win. If you start fighting them in the flesh, you don't get anywhere. Always fight them in the spirit. If you have a couple, and let's say one of the persons, let's say it was a man, married a woman who was a church witch, didn't know it, later on in the marriage found out the person serving the unclean spirits. This is what happened to me many, many years ago. Not my current wife, many, many years ago. Throws the unclean spirits out of the woman. And, after the third or fourth time you throw the unclean spirits out of the person, the unclean spirits aren't going to be coming back for a long time. So and that could vary as to what a long time is. So now you're with this person that's your wife, and you demon toss the person that has no demons, and you say, let's go to the mall, we'll go shopping and get something to eat there. Well, this person's not going to be very happy doing that, because they're going to be afraid of walking around in a mall next to you, arm in arm or something like that, because the other demonic people may put a curse. They see you, and the unclean spirits in them detect you as being a believer because the Holy Spirit's in you, and they curse you and your woman, your wife. Not having an unclean spirit to tell the other unclean spirit that this is one of theirs, they wind up getting cursed, so they're afraid of that. So I made it so that this jackass can't communicate that to them no matter what he does. So if his own people get him, I didn't do it. But why I did it was it keeps them very scared and very nervous about what to do about it. They're full of fear. They're fearful like crazy. And this is a problem that schmuck has to work out. But I didn't go start a fight with that jackass. That jackass went and started picking on me because of my relationship with Jehovah and my teaching the true gospel. So do I care what happens to this person? I do and I don't. I just want to get rid of the person and make things so bad for the person that it doesn't bounce back. Okay? Because you just toss them, and then you get another demon, and they come back and they say, oh, you can't stop me. Well, that's not the case this time. So Satan could send another one in here to impersonate being the first one, right? And make me think it didn't work. Well, then we'll just go get that one too. That's all. But remember that. They could always send another one in to make you think. Because I can't see them here. I don't know what they look like or what their name is. So I could always play that. But just do it again. And again and again and again. All right. So, all right, I'll put up a prayer, and y'all believers can agree with it. Prayer for all of us. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, my Heavenly Father Jehovah, I pray, I submit this prayer to you for all the true believers and their households, and me and my wife. I pray for your peace, safety, protection, and joy to be on all of us, and your healing and recuperative power to flow through us, that we don't get sick or hurt for all time till we hit redemption, and then some. I don't think we'll need it after redemption. And I pray that we have strength, stamina, and endurance every day. And I pray that we be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray all that for our animals and pets as well. And I pray that we have no accidents, no tickets, no breakdowns, no getting stopped, stuck, or stranded with any car or vehicle, not getting frauded, robbed, gypped, cheated, ripped off, robbed, or being sold faulty goods or missing packages or anything. And I pray for us to know the Bible better and know the prophecies better and to walk in them. And I pray that we you would pour your Holy Spirit out on us, and we would have the gifts of the Spirit, and we would have our discernment enhanced for sure, and we would bear much good fruit for you, and that very soon we could meet together physically, so we would experience two or more gathered together. There I am in the midst of you. We pray to experience that. I'm not so sure very many of us know what that feels like. And I pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and I pray we get more insights into Israel and Zechariah 12, and more understanding of when it happens and how it happens. And I pray all this to you, my Heavenly Father, for me and my wife and all the true believers in their households, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And let me go through Isaiah 47 with you now before I leave. And let's take a look at that and see how close we are too, because that's also a daughter of Babylon passage, okay? It's Isaiah 47, and it's not a great big one. It's, 15 verses. Come down, it's Isaiah 47:1. Come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. The Chaldeans in the original Babel, or the Babylon, the one that was in what we call Iraq today over there, were they were like astrologers, soothsayers, like look at the deer's liver, stupid things like that, right? Daughter of the Chaldeans, the descendants of them. It says virgin daughter. Virgin means it's not married. So it's talking about the Columbia or something like that. The word for daughter is bat, daughter. Thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. So it's not going to be rich and, stuck up and stuff, right? Take the millstones and grind meal. That's what poor people are doing, right? Uncover thy locks make bare the leg. Uncover the thigh, pass over the river. So they're pulling their clothes up to walk through the water. This is a sign of a poor person. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. Well, you could say that this is just shameful because their nakedness will be seen, or you could say that they're transactional, and that's where it's going to be shameful. Thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance. Thy shame shall be seen means you're going to be shamed because of what the people see. In other words, what they're representing themselves to be, they're the opposite of. They're the other one. Okay, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. Okay, it's not coming at them like a man. They're not going to get out of it. They ain't talking their way out of it. As for our Redeemer, so now we think year of redemption, Jehovah of armies is his name, the Holy One of Israel. Okay, and it's Kadosh, holy, Yisrael, reasonably translated well. Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness, O daughter of the Chaldeans, so daughter, descendant of the witches. For thou shalt no more be called the Lady of Kingdoms. In other words, they lost their influence, their empires, their big shot status. They're not the hammer of the whole earth. They're not the great voice anymore. I was wroth with my people. I have polluted my inheritance and given them now, I think giving them into the hand is, where do you have 6.5 million known Jews but America? And that's not even taking into account the lost tribes like North American Indians. It could be many more millions. So more there than there is in Israel, because the 6.5 million Jews is about the amount of Jews in Israel. Thou didst show them, Israel might have a few thousand over that. Thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid thy yoke. Could be North American Indians, could be the Jews, could be whatever. And now sayest, I shall be a lady forever, so that thou didst not lay these things to thy heart. See, they're saying they're going to ignore it because they're going to keep believing the delusion. That's never going to happen to them. Neither didst remember the latter end of it. They're not paying attention to how it ends in the Bible. They're just ignoring it, like they got everything dark. They're delusional. Therefore, hear now this: thou art given to pleasures that Therefore hear now this, thou that art given to pleasures, that dwell carelessly, that sayest in thy heart, I am, none shall, and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow married to the land, losing the land. Neither shall I know the loss of children. But yeah, they're the disciples of the devil. But these two things shall come to thee, a moment in one day, shall come to thee in a moment in one day. See, it comes suddenly in a day and an hour, right? Okay, suddenly, you don't know the day or the hour. Okay, well, for this we might. The destruction of the daughter of Babylon, we're not told is a secret. Okay, that's not a secret. To thee in a moment, in an hour, in one day, the loss of children and widowhood. They shall come upon thee in their perfection, for the multitude of thy sorceries, and for the great abundance of thine enchantments. If you're ever with you meet somebody, you don't know them, and all of a sudden you start feeling, oh, this is really a nice person, I like this person, and you don't know them, that's enchantments. They're putting it on you. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness, thou hast said, none seeth me. Thy wisdom and thy knowledge hath perverted thee, and thou hast said in thy heart, I am, and none else beside me. That's America. The whore is Columbia, District of Columbia. The Statue of Liberty, the woman on the roof of the Capitol building, the Columbia Motion Pictures icon is the Statue of Liberty, a woman without breasts, whatever you want to make it that one. Therefore shall evil come upon thee, thou shalt not know from whence it riseth, and mischief, evil sort of in a way, shall fall upon thee, thou shalt not be able to put it off, and desolation shall come upon thee suddenly, which thou shalt not know. So the desolation is going to come suddenly. That means nobody's going to be living there anymore. The demons lost all their people. Stand now with thine enchantments, and with the multitude of thy sorceries. That's what runs America. The Hollywood, the TV, they sell goods that way. The government runs that way. It's the whole thing. Wherein their religions, it's all the same. It's all demonic, everything with them. Wherein thou hast labored from thy youth, if so be thou shalt be able to profit, if so be thou mayest prevail. See, from their youth, well, George Washington was a Mason. Ben Franklin was a Mason. That's the youth from the beginning. Witchcraft. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let now the astrologers, the stargazers, the monthly procrastinators stand up and save thee from these things that shall come upon thee. See, this is all astrology. Stargazers, astrology. monthly procrastinators. What's your sign? Are you a Scorpio? Are you a Schmorpio? Or whatever you are, right? Uh, uh, the monthly procrastinators, it's the same thing. That's what the Chaldeans were big on. Behold, it used to be when they sold printed newspapers that every newspaper had the astrology information in it for that day in America. Every newspaper had it. Behold, they shall be as stubble, the fire. Behold, they shall be as stubble. Remember the fire, I will kindle fires in and around her cities. That's in Jeremiah 50:51. Shall burn them. They're going to get burned. They shall not deliver themselves from the power of the flame. There you go. There shall not be a coal to warm at, nor fire to sit before. Thus shall they be unto thee with whom thou hast labored, even thy merchants from thy youth. They shall wander every one to his quarter, and none shall save thee. See, when Trump does this thing to Israel that he's doing with Gaza, a lot of people in America are going to like it. A lot of people in America hate Israel. And they don't want to see America help Israel. They want to see America hurt Israel. They're going to be rejoicing. But America's coming to an end very soon. And that's going to drive the Muslims to do the siege against Israel to get rid of us. And that's when the two witnesses get rid of them. And that's when Yeshua appears in the clouds and we get everlasting life and we get redemption. So there you go. So I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I'm out. And I hope you got something out of this. Remember me for offerings. And that's it.